Good morning. Let's do a bracha on the coffee or whatever it is. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol b'yeh b'dvarei. Shehakol nihiyah b'dvarei. You're good. We're in the middle of a mimer, a Chai Elul mimer, which is discussing the concept of tshuva from a different angle. We're up to this part that tells us that tshuva is not just a person did a sin and he has to fix it. A person did something wrong, he messed up, he got to clean up. But there is a level of tshuva which is greater than that, and that is the return. I want to come back, I want to connect to Hashem on a deeper level than I was before. It's not necessarily that it caused some kind of damage or made a blemish. There is a distancing, and we need to come back to that state. And that's the idea of the king, the analogy of the prince, who's crying out. It's not just crying because, hey, I don't know how to speak. The feeling that I'm trying to achieve is beyond expression in words. It's so high, I can't say it in words. We could say that this nimshal, this analogy of the mashal of Baal Shem Tov, that the son sinned and he caused a blemish and he went off the path, meaning he's misbehaving according to God's book. However, normally we say it regarding the idea of tshuva, but in the introduction to that mashal, in the Maimer V'Kacha, he says that this is really what Shofar represents. Meaning what? Even though tshuva, a whole year you can do tshuva. There's no any day you can do tshuva. There's a very auspicious time, an opportune time for tshuva. Anytime you can do tshuva. There's a special opportune time for tshuva. What are those opportune times? It's the month of Elul, and the 10 days of tshuva. So a whole year, a yid can do tshuva anytime. But there are 40 days which are special, unique for tshuva, and that is 30 days of Elul and the 10 days of Aseret Yemei Tshuva. During those times is a special opportune time for tshuva. So, Rabbi explains what does tshuva represent. What's tshuva? Tshuva is not necessarily for something that a person did wrong. He caused the sin, he brought about a blemish, now he has to fix it. Rather, it's definitely not for things limited to things that are less than kam. People make the mistake and they think that tshuva is someone did something wrong, now he has to fix it. It's true. But this tshuva is much greater than that. True tshuva means, as we say in davening, return us with a complete tshuva in front of you. Now, lefanecha means to your pnimius, to your deepest parts. And that's really what we're saying in the idea of tshuva. It's not, I messed up. I want to return to Hashem on a deeper level. Before I was born, before a soul came down into this world, welcome Michael from Delaware, and whoever else is watching. We're glad you're here. When a person is doing tshuva, he's returning. Before a person is born, his neshama is in a very lofty state, right? It's very spiritual, and it's connected to God, and it's appreciating God's glory and spirituality and holiness and so on. Imagine a person. There are different types of pleasures, right? There are certain people that like pleasure, food. That's what they enjoy. Someone's a little bit more refined. They appreciate music. Someone's a little bit more refined. They get pleasure from concepts and philosophy and whatever else, right? There's different levels. There's spiritual pleasure. The neshama was having spiritual pleasure in heaven. And then it's thrown into this world for a purpose and whatever, but it's in this world in a body. And it has to deal with coarseness and materialism and all this other stuff. And sometimes it has to fight not to do the wrong thing. Okay? And it's down here now. And this neshama is saying, I want to do tshuva, I want to connect to Hashem on a deeper level. That's what tshuva is. It's not just about a sin, it's about Restore me, don't leave the body, obviously, but restore me to that original state. Before we get as it's explained in Tanya and the guys at Tshuva in the morning. Now the Rabbi says, you know what real Tshuva is? It's complete Tshuva is something called a Tshuva Ila'a, a higher level of Tshuva, which is greater than sin. Sometimes when you talk about sin, you're dealing with sin, you're dealing with these types of stuff. It's a pretty low level in Tshuva, right? But there's a higher level, and that's what the Rebbe talks about. The higher level is a Tshuva Ilah. You want to connect to Hashem in a deeper way, to be much more sensitive and connected to godliness. So we have to go away from this feeling that Tshuva is only about cleaning up an Aveira, right? That could be done in a minute. But we have to look at Tshuva as a much deeper thing of getting closer to the Eibush, getting a little bit more sensitive to spirituality, being a little more holy and so on. Fiza Yeshleim are based on this, we could say regarding the mashal of the Baal Shem Tov regarding Tkiyah Shofar. What did we say? That there's a prince who was very distant from the palace, and he comes back home and he doesn't remember the language of the king. He doesn't know how to express himself. He can't get into the palace. So he starts to cry. The Baal Shem Tov says he's hoping that his father, the king, will recognize the cry and will let him in. And that's what happens. Similarly, when we come to Rosh Hashanah, so during the year we're perhaps distanced in some way. And so distanced that we feel we don't have the proper tools or ability to express ourselves and come to Hashem and say, here I am. What do I mean, here you are? You don't look the same way, you don't talk the same way, and so on. But the call of the shofar, that's the deep sound of the yid that says, I'm here, just accept me the way I am. Okay. Now there's two ways to look at it. You could look at it and say that the child is so low, he doesn't know what to say, which is the basic concept of the mashal. Or you could look at it a little bit deeper, that my cry is so strong it can't be expressed in words. Words are limiting. Words means this is what it is and not more, not less. Right? It has a certain category to it. And normally we say when a child cries is because they don't have the words to express it. It's lower than expression. What he's saying here is, in a sense, it's higher than expression. My connection, a yid's connection, the neshama relationship with Hashem is so deep, words don't adequately describe it. Only a sound could. That's what the shofar is. And that's the same idea of tshuva. Tshuva is not just an avera. Tshuva is saying, Hachzideinu b'shuva shlema lefanecha, return us with a complete tshuva. The fanecha means in front of you, before you, but it also means pnimius, which means the internal part. Connect me in a very deep way to Hashem. And that happens through the blowing of shofar. And here's a very fundamental piece. It says like this: the mere fact that the only child of the king, that's the analogy of Yidden, right? We're the only child of Hashem, goes out and says, despite where I've been, I want to go and connect to the Eibishter. I want to greet the king in the field in Elul. The fact that he's doing that itself takes away all of his negative things, the attitude. And shofar causes, as panecha vayavakesh, I'm searching for the panecha. So a person's going about his own business. He's involved in taivas and other things, and he's seeped in physical, material, pleasurable experiences. That's all he cares about. And here's its Elul. And he decides to go to the field and greet the king. Why? What's he missing? Why is he doing that? The fact that he's doing that already removes him from that category. He's now not anymore he got rid of all those negative things. The mindset, I'm going to greet the king, that's a shift. Now, when it comes to shofar, what's happening now? Now it says, Ponecha Hashem Avakesh. Now I want the Eibishter. So sometimes when we get stuck, which we have to do that, we have to take care of Vedas and to do tshuva and clean all those things up. But shofar is a lot more than that. It's a lot deeper than that. Especially that Rabbi explains that the kavanah here, when the pasuk says Bakshu Fanayas Ponecha Hashem Avakesh, we started saying in Chedesh Elul, we say L'David Hashem Oiri from Tillim 27. What we're saying over there is, search out my face. Your face I'm searching. Because the idea that the Yid is looking for the Eibishter. What does it mean in your face? It means b'chinas pnimius shebepnimius halev, the internal and deepest parts of the heart. There's a surface level, which is action. There's a deeper level. It's the heart, it's your emotions, it's what you feel inside. Then there's the essence, the etzem of who are you really deep down. You wake up first in the middle of the night and instinctive, the Freudian slip, or however you want to refer to it, the deep part of a person is emes there. And that's the part that we're trying to connect to the Eibush now, the deepest of levels. Everything else also, but it shouldn't remain only on that level. Basically, we could explain. Now we could explain the guy, the prince, he forgot the language of the country because he was so distant from his father's palace for so long, and he was involved in other things. And he starts to scream out, to cry out with a simple voice. Now, we looked at the simple voice, says, look how far he's gone. All he has is crying. It's the only way he could communicate. And they're saying, no, let's look, based on this, that what we're trying to accomplish is connect on the pnimius of pnimius. Now the cry is a positive thing. It's not, I have nothing to say, so I'm going to cry. I'm looking for something so deep, there's no words to ask for it. He wants the Eibush, what's he going to say? So Shofar is that's his cry. On the basic level, this that he forgot the language of the country. And he couldn't put his sound into words, is because the sound is lower than being divided in letters. You have a sound, like a baby, right? And then it gets a little more mature, higher level, it could now bring it out into words. That's the basic Baal Shem Tov explanation. That kid's crying, he doesn't have, right? As is explained in many places, that Kol Shofar is lower than its halakos of ACS. You can't divide it into letters. But on a deeper level, he says, you can explain it in a positive sense. That letters are hagbola, they're limits. You put a letter to something, you put a description to something, that's what it means. Whatever you describe, whatever word you use, that's what it is. But the Kol Shofar, Kol Tzaka, Kol Poshet Shalamayla Me'agbola. Kol Shofar is a simple sound which is greater than any limitations. Even limitations of what a Yid did, where he was, all that stuff. We're rising above all that. It's not just a joke. The neshama has that quality to it. There's a certain purity of the neshama which rises above all these things. Kavod b'siddur, as explained in Siddur, in the Dibra Maskul Haven in Kiyah Shofar Pekavana Sabal Shem Tov Zal. The Kol Shofar, the B'dugmas HaKol Shu Makar L'Chol HaEisios. Kol Shofar is like the sound, which is the source for all the letters. All letters, Shem Tov explains, come from a sound. They start off with a sound, then it gets divided into letters. It's not below the letters, it's beyond the letters. It's trickling down into letters. That's the Shofar sound. Gam L'Eisis HaMachshava, it's also the source of letters of Machshava. So this tells us that there's letters, that what we're talking about till now is letters of verbalization, right? But then there's letters in your mind that you're thinking about that's much less limited. But it's still a structure, it's a format. And this sound of the Shofar is a level of the neshama which is even higher than that format. It's very deep. This is the root and the source of all the revelations. Aleph is like Aleph, doesn't have a sound, but even higher than Aleph. It's the source of everything else. Just like on Rosh Hashanah we say that energy-wise, everything goes back to its original state. The Eibush is renewing the chayis for the whole year. And you have to bring them forth from the highest of sources. Therefore, you blow shofar. Because you're trying to go back to the original, the chayis in the world is going back to its original state. How do you bring it out from the original state? Through sound. Because that's the highest and higher than all these other things. Even now, that's about the sound. You have no words to express yourself. But there's another part of the mashal of the Baal Shem Tov that he forgot the language of the king. What does language mean? This is also a positive thing. The Gemara tells us that the Zera, when he traveled from Yerushalayim to Bavel, and in Yerushalayim there's Talmud Yerushalmi, and in Bavel is Talmud Bavli, and you want to learn Talmud Bavli. He fasted 100 fasts to forget Talmud. Sorry, he went from Bavel to Yerushalayim to forget Talmud Bavli, so that he could properly understand the thinking and the way of learning of Talmud Yerushalmi. I needed to move myself from this level to get to that level. So forgot the language of the king, yeah, and it's a negative thing in a basic level. But on a deeper level, it's a positive thing. Here's a Meira, a Tana, who had to forget. He fasted in order to forget, because I want to move from this state to that state. Tshuva means I want to forget chizur de hay alma. There's a certain steepness a person is stuck into the visions of this world, physical world. All he wants is fun and pleasure and so on. And forgetting represents, I'm going away from this. It's very hard to just switch to ruchnius when you're feeling and seeing all the physical things. So forgetting the language of the king is not such a bad thing. It implies the moving from chizur de hay alma to achzirenu v'shuva shlema l'fanecha, to have this high level of getting closer. So here we understand this whole idea of the Shofar and Elul, which we said is similar to the Shofar of Rosh Hashanah. And that's why you have to skip a day, because if not, you wouldn't think it's the same. Shofar accomplishes this in Elul also, especially Chai Elul, which brings in a Chayes in Elul, the birthday of Al Shem Tov, the birthday of Al Rebbe. It brings in a special Chayes in the Aveda of Elul, and one of the Avedas of Elul is recognizing that Shofar is the sound that tells Hashem, higher than words, I want to connect with you on the deepest of levels. And that's really how a Yid feels. You just have to bring it out and be more in tune with it. Thank you for joining. Those that are online, see you again soon. Have a wonderful day. Like, share, subscribe.